Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on something I think will resonate with a lot of you out there. College life.
The good old days. Or, maybe not so good for some. I guess it depends on who you ask.
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
Expectations versus reality. Whether you're thinking about applying, or maybe you're already knee-deep in textbooks, or even if you're just curious,
Uh,
about what it's really like behind the scenes.
I think a lot of folks are curious, yeah. There's so much hype around the whole college experience, but
Yes, absolutely. And to get to the bottom of this, we're going to be taking a deep dive into, well, a podcast episode, actually. It's called College Life Expectations versus Reality.
okay, so we're going meta here. A deep dive into a podcast about expectations and reality.
Exactly. And it's a conversation between, get this, a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed freshman. Her name's Priya. And then we have Rahul, a seasoned senior.
Ah, I see where this is going. So Priya's probably got all these, movie montage expectations of college?
You nailed it. Instant friends, acing every exam without breaking a sweat, parties every night.
And Rahul's the voice of, shall we say, experience.
He's definitely bringing a dose of reality to the table. Priya's expectations are, well, let's just say straight out of a Hollywood movie. But Rahul's there to give her a gentle nudge back down to earth.
You know, it's funny how much our perceptions of things, not just college, are shaped by what we see in movies and on TV.
It's true. We get bombarded with these idealized versions of everything, and it's easy to forget that real life is, a little messier.
A lot messier sometimes, right?
Totally. Take Priya's first day, for instance. She walks in expecting this grand orientation, like she's going to find her squad right off the bat,
Yeah.
exploring the campus like she owns the place.
I can picture it now. Wind in her hair, not a care in the world.
Cut to reality. Priya's frantically running around trying to decipher a campus map the size of a small country, completely lost.
Been there, done that. And I bet a lot of our listeners have too. Those first few days can be overwhelming.
No kidding. I remember my own first day. I ended up in the wrong building for like an hour.
Yeah.
Not exactly the glamorous start I had in mind.
I think most of us have a first day of college story that doesn't quite match the Hollywood version. But you know what? Those little mishaps, they're all part of the experience.
They make for good stories later on, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what Priya starts to realize as she talks to Rahul. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but that's okay.
It's those unexpected moments, the challenges that make it real, right?
And those challenges, they start right from the get-go. Priya had this whole, fantasy about making friends instantly. Like you just walk into the dining hall and boom, there's your soulmate squad ready to take on the world.
Ah, yes, the myth of the instant friend group. I mean, it's a great trope for TV shows and movies, but in reality, it's usually a bit more complicated.
It takes time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like real, genuine connections. You can't just force those.
You've got to think about it, right? It's shared experiences that really solidify friendships. Those late-night study sessions, maybe a disastrous attempt at making pizza in the dorm kitchen.
Well, I've got some stories about dorm cooking experiments gone wrong.
Exactly. It's those moments of, I don't know, vulnerability where you let your guard down a bit that forge those strong bonds.
So you're saying those meet cutes in movies, they're not always how it goes down in real life.
More often than not, it's the unexpected encounters, the people you bump into at the library or the coffee shop. Those are the connections that can really surprise you.
It's about letting friendships evolve naturally, not forcing them into some predetermined box.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? Those unexpected connections. And Rahul, in the podcast, he really emphasizes that. He tells Priya, just relax. You'll find your people. Don't stress about it.
It's about finding your tribe, those folks who get you, who you can be yourself around.
And sometimes that takes a little bit of time and, well, a few awkward encounters along the way.
Definitely. But hey, those awkward encounters, they make for good stories later on, don't they?
They certainly do. Okay, so we've covered first day jitters and making friends. What about the academics? That's kind of the whole point of college, right?
Right. And that's where Priya gets another reality check. She's coming in thinking, no uniforms, no strict rules. College is going to be one big party.
Uh-oh. Sounds like someone's in for a surprise.
Big time. She thought she'd just breeze through her classes, no problem. But then Rahul lays down the truth. College is a different beast.
It's a whole new level of academic rigor, wouldn't you say? And it's not just about the workload, it's the whole approach to learning. You're expected to be more independent, to think critically, to really engage with the material.
It's not just about memorizing facts and spitting them back out on a test anymore.
Exactly. And for a lot of students, that transition from high school to college, it's a steep learning curve.
It's like going from having your hand held to being thrown into the deep end,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You're expected to swim on your own. But, that's where the real growth happens, when you're challenged to figure things out for yourself.
It's about developing those critical thinking skill, that independence. And speaking of figuring things out, Priya had some interesting expectations about professors. She thought they'd be these, like, super enthusiastic mentors guiding her every step of the way.
Ah, yes, the sage on the stage, ready to impart their wisdom.
But the reality, at least in her experience so far, has been a little different. She's encountered those professors who basically lecture and leave, leaving students to fend for themselves. Refer to the book, they say, and that's it. No hand-holding, no spoon-feeding the material.
I think that shift in teaching style can be a bit jarring for students who are used to a more structured learning environment.
It's definitely a different approach, but is it necessarily a bad thing?
That's a good question, and I think the answer, like most things in life, is nuanced. It really depends. On the one hand, you've got the traditional lecture format, right? Where the professor is the dispenser of knowledge and the students are expected to absorb it. And there's a place for that. But I think increasingly there's a shift towards more active learning approaches, where students are encouraged to take ownership of their learning, to be more engaged, to ask questions.
So it's not just about sitting there and taking notes, it's about actively participating in the learning process.
Yeah, and I think those professors who say refer to the book, they're not necessarily trying to be unhelpful. It's more about encouraging students to dig deeper, to not just rely on the lectures, but to go out and find the answers for themselves.
So it's about fostering a sense of intellectual curiosity
Mm.
and independence, which I guess is important for, life beyond the classroom.
Absolutely. Because in the real world, you're not always going to have someone telling you exactly what to do and how to do it. You're going to have to be able to figure things out on your own.
It's about being resourceful
Right.
and developing those problem-solving skills.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about the academic side of things, but what about the non-academic side, the stuff that happens outside the classroom? Because college is more than just lectures and exams,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's about the whole experience. The
Yeah.
social scene, the late-night study sessions, the questionable dorm food,
Ah, yes, the dorm food, a culinary adventure in itself.
for sure. And Priya and Rahul in the podcast, they talk about those dreaded 8 a.m. lectures.
The bane of every college student's existence, or at least those of us who aren't, morning people.
I was definitely not a morning person in college. I mean, I tried, but dragging myself out of bed for those early classes, it was rough.
It's a test of willpower for sure, and caffeine consumption.
Lots of caffeine. But even with the strongest coffee, sometimes it was just, like, impossible.
I think there's a reason why those 8 a.m. classes are often the least popular ones.
Rahul's advice to Priya: avoid them at all costs. Unless, of course, you're one of those rare morning people who actually, enjoys waking up before the sun.
But even then, I'd say sleep is precious in college. You've got to prioritize it.
So true. Because
Mhm.
even though those early classes are tough, there's so much else going on in college that you don't want to miss out on.
Mm.
The social scene, the events, all that stuff.
Right, and those experiences, they're just as important as the academic side of things. They help you grow as a person, to develop your interests, to meet new people, to explore different perspectives.
It's about finding that balance, right, between hitting the books and, having a life outside of academics.
Exactly. And I think college provides a really unique environment for that because you're surrounded by so many different people from all walks of life, and there's always something going on.
You're constantly exposed to new ideas and perspectives, which I guess can be a little overwhelming at times, but also incredibly enriching.
It's a time for exploration and discovery, both intellectually and personally.
And Priya, even though she was a bit nervous at first, she ends up having a blast at a freshers party. It gets her excited for all the future events and the chance to, make new friends and just experience all that college has to offer.
I love that. It reminds us that sometimes we need to step outside our comfort zones, to embrace the unknown. And those social events, they can be such a catalyst for growth and connection.
And Rahul, he shares his favorite memory from college, which was the Inter-College Sports Fest. He said the energy was electric, the competition was fierce, and the music was, like, thumping.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was quite an experience.
It's those shared experiences, those moments of excitement and camaraderie that really stick with you, don't they?
They create those lasting memories that you can look back on and smile, even years later. Now, another aspect of college life that Priya gets a glimpse into through Rahul's stories is the world of hostel life.
Ah, yes. Hostel life, a world unto itself.
It sounds like a unique experience. Priya, being a homebody, was pretty wide-eyed at Rahul's tales of, like, midnight snack raids and those late-night philosophical debates that seem to happen only in dorm rooms.
It's a melting pot of personalities and experiences, isn't it? You're living in close quarters with people from all different backgrounds, and that can lead to some, shall we say, interesting situations.
It's definitely a crash course in learning to live with other people with all their quirks and habits.
And that can be challenging at times, but it's also incredibly rewarding because you learn to adapt, to compromise, to appreciate different perspectives.
It's about building a sense of community, right?
Yeah,
Even if that community is a little bit chaotic at times.
exactly. And Rahul, he even talks about the legendary Midnight Maggie feasts.
Midnight Maggie feasts.
So apparently it's a thing in hostels, like a rite of passage. You and your dorm mates huddled around a hot plate, cooking up instant noodles at 3 in the morning.
That sounds so college.
It is, and it speaks to that sense of camaraderie and shared experience that you get from living in a hostel.
It's those little things, those moments of connection that make it so special. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on another important aspect of college life that Rahul emphasizes: the value of part-time jobs and internships.
Ah, yes, getting that real-world experience.
Right. And Rahul, he encourages Priya to start early, to build her resume, to gain some practical skills, to figure out what she's actually interested in.
It's about more than just earning some extra cash, right? It's about exploring different career paths, developing those transferable skills that employers are looking for.
So it's about setting yourself up for success after graduation.
Exactly. And Rahul, he shares his own experience as a content writer during college. He talks about how it not only helped him financially, but also honed his writing skills, taught him about meeting deadlines, and gave him the experience of working independently.
That's awesome. So it's about taking those skills that you're learning in the classroom and applying them in a real-world setting.
Exactly. And that can be so valuable, both for your personal growth and for your future career prospects.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into the expectations versus realities of college life, it's clear that Priya's journey is just beginning. And through her conversations with Rahul, she started to understand that the college experience is about so much more than just attending classes and getting good grades.
It's about the whole package, isn't it? The academics, the social life, the personal growth, the challenges, the triumphs. It's all part of what makes college such a unique and transformative experience.
It sounds like Priya is starting to realize that the reality of college, while different from her initial expectations, is actually even richer and more rewarding than she could have imagined. And it's cool to see how Priya's like changing and kind of growing throughout this whole podcast thing.
Yeah, she's definitely coming into her own, isn't she? It's like at the beginning she was so stuck on, how she thought college was supposed to be, and now she's actually starting to like embrace the reality of it all.
It's like she's shedding that movie version of college and realizing that, hey, real life is actually way more interesting.
It's funny how that happens. We build up these expectations in our heads, and then when things don't match up, it can be kind of disappointing at first.
Right, but then you realize that those unexpected moments, the ones that don't fit the script, those are the ones that make it memorable.
Exactly. And I think that's what Priya's starting to see, that it's the messy, the unpredictable, the stuff that doesn't go according to plan. That's what makes college so special.
And towards the end of the podcast, Priya, she kind of sums it all up with this really simple but like powerful piece of advice to her past self.
Oh, I'm curious. What is it?
She says, don't overthink it, just go with the flow.
I love that. So much wisdom in those few words, right? Because college life really, it throws you curveballs, and sometimes the best thing you can do is just roll with it.
Exactly. It's about being adaptable, being open to new experiences, and not getting so hung up on how you think things should be.
Because sometimes the most amazing opportunities come from those unexpected detours.
Totally. And then Rahul, being the wise senior that he is, he adds his 2 cents.
What does he say?
He tells Priya to enjoy every moment because college flies by fast.
Right.
Which, is probably good advice for life in general.
It really is. We get so caught up in the day-to-day and worrying about the future or dwelling on the past that we forget to just be present in the moment.
To appreciate the little things, the good times with friends, the late night study sessions, even those 8 a.m. lectures.
Even those. Because before you know it, it's over and you're wishing you could go back.
Time flies when you're having fun, or even when you're not, I guess.
So true. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the expectations versus realities of college life, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's a journey, right? It's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be what you expect, but it's going to be an experience that shapes you in ways you can't even imagine.
And it's about embracing that journey with all its ups and downs and just making the most of it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, to all of you out there, whether you're about to embark on your own college adventure, or maybe you're reminiscing about your glory days, or even if you're just curious about what it's all about, we hope this deep dive has given you a little glimpse into the world behind those ivy-covered walls.
And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about the experience. So go out there, make some memories, and don't be afraid to embrace the unexpected.
That's it for this episode, folks. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into something fascinating.